Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and if you don't have a raging hard on after seeing a chain like that from Essence Drain, then I recommend you go see your doctor. Because how is that not the greatest thing you've ever seen, or the greatest thing you've ever experienced when playing Essence Drain? Now, I could show you highlight reels of chains like these all day fucking long, because that's basically what you get out of maps like waterways, gorge, arid lake, whatever. If you roll decent pack size and have rather high damage on your essence drain like we currently do, paired with stuff like temp chains, vulnerability, makes just for an easy playstyle, and the more AoE you get, the more of these chains you're going to see, but it's largely dependent on map. In any case, it is just Essence Drain going to work, and it feels so satisfying to play. I really cannot recommend you try it enough. It's not for everyone, I will admit, but I feel like if you build it correctly, if you at least give yourself the best chance to have damage on this build, it's going to feel amazing. And it's just such a different playstyle to everything else in the game at the moment that it's worth at least having a go and seeing where it takes you. That said, that's basically the spiel about the character. I'm going to show you some boss kills. This is Waterways. Now we're doing Palace Dominus. There's going to be plenty more. Long story short, a lot of the damage is coming from poison. If you don't have any poison scaling, if you don't have poison coming from your essence drain somehow, you pretty much won't be doing single target damage. So bear that in mind when building your essence drain character. If you don't somehow get poison into it, then your boss kills and your single target is going to be very lackluster. By this point, my character is level 90, and I have done just about everything. Completed a Core Malachi run, completed a Uber Atziri run, and I will level with you, this probably has absolutely nothing on a low life Essence Drain build, though it is competitive and also pretty damn cheap to build if you don't include a Cosprees. And I'll show you an alternative to Cosprees in a minute anyway, which should make the build extremely cheap then if you opt out of using one. Because you really don't need one, the only thing it ultimately provides is saving maybe a ring slot and also lets you run hexproof maps. As you can see, what's happening here is essentially temp chains and enfeeble will carry you across most boss fights, including something like Core Malachi. When he gets his immunity from your curses, then he becomes a bit of a nuisance, but temp chains lets you react very quickly to his extremely slow shit, take as much time as you want, and you'll be able to get out of the way of most things. The only issue that comes into play with my build is, as you'll be able to see, it's life-based, so I can't really take too much damage on shit like this, Core Malachi, basically, and also I'm relying on the poison from Cosprees. So the poison from Cosprees comes from poisoning only cursed enemies. If an enemy is cursed, you can poison them with your chaos damage, or with any damage that you use. I don't have the capability of cursing the heart and whatever organs he spawns here, so it makes for very slow kills, and that makes for very dangerous Malachi phases, because he's not getting cursed, and you have to deal with all of his shit while that's happening. That's essentially the problem with the Cosprees, and also with the life-based version of this build. If you're an Essence Drain CI or low-life character, it should be so much easier, because anytime you take a 5k hit, first of all, that's probably only half of your health, and second of all, you'll start regenerating your ES after a couple of seconds and then be back up to full. So that does take care of a lot of those problems, but I really wanted to make a life-based version that takes care of everything and does it on a slightly better budget than low life. Ultimately, if you want the best Essence Drain character, I think you should play low life. I'm not sure I have a guide up or tree for that one right now, but there should be some out there that you can find. This one, just a very cheap, mostly very cheap, and a pretty fun alternative regardless, that will get you through the entire game, just with a few hassles here or there. I'll show you what my setup consists of, and then an Uber Atziri run straight after. First things first, the character is level 90 Scion, and we are the Occultist Ascendancy plus Deadeye. Occultist gives you minus 15 chaos res to everything you curse, which is basically everything, a little bit of damage, and Deadeye gives you 30% chance to pierce, which ends up being 80% total from the gem as well. A little bit more damage while the proj travels, and an additional projectile, which just makes hitting things a lot simpler when you have two projectiles and they pierce almost everything. It's basically a quality of life issue here and a damage issue here. As well as that, we get Path of the Witch, which is from your Uber Ascendancy, last 2 points. Basically lets you get 2 Ascendancies and then another couple of points to start somewhere else. So we do that to start at the Witch Tree, and that just saves us a few points in traveling, which isn't a big deal, but just another nice little perk on top of the other passives you get from Scion. So you get 3 in total, and then a few more from savings. And that lets us travel kind of all over the place and be fairly efficient with our damage gain. As far as the tree is concerned, the only things to really note are additional curse over here and curse effectiveness over here. Both pretty important if you want to maximize your curse efficiency, I suppose. Jewels, they look like basically damage over time, spell damage and life, if you can get it. Projectile damage is another one. Chaos damage is something else you can get too, which we don't currently have any of. The way I've set up the character, basically because I'm using a Cosprees, it will poison cursed enemies on hit, and you can have an additional curse. So that saves you running a Dodri's Ring to get your 3rd curse. But most of the time I'm running 2 curses anyway, and I have Enfeeble on self-cast whenever I feel like I need it, which is only for the really hard bosses, and let's just say Uber Atziri trash. So you're always running Vulnerability and Temp Chains, though you can run Enfeeble instead of Vulnerability if you really want, and then self-curse Vulnerability, just for a safer playstyle. That's fine too. And then we have Enfeeble on self-cast whenever we freaking want. Since we have Cosprees here with poison cursed enemies on hit, that means we don't need a Consuming Dark. But you certainly can use that and not run a Cosprees. What this does though is let you run whatever weapon you want, and for me I've chosen a wand with decent spell damage and some cast speed. So the importance of that is more cast speed means you're going to be able to throw out more essence drains, and the faster you can do that, the more you'll be stacking poison, which is where your Consuming Dark lacks because it doesn't have great damage and it doesn't have any cast speed, but it does save you the entire poison node, so that's your alternative if you don't want to run a Cosprees. And then you can run something else like a Carcass Jack, or pretty much whatever chest you please, as defensive as you like, and it's certainly the best option to go for when you're running CI or low life versions of the build. But if you don't have a Cosprees, you're running Consuming Dark, then you probably want to put a Dodri's Damning in, or a +1 curse amulet if you can get your hands on one of those, and that's essentially the only difference to the build. You won't be able to run curse, immune, or hexproof maps. Or you can, but it's just a little harder. The actual link set up right now that I'm running is, in order of importance I should say, I suppose, Essence Drain, Controlled Destruction, Pierce, Void Manipulation, Rapid Decay, and then Slower Proj. So Slower Proj is your 6th link. You can use level 4 Empower, but bear in mind, for me, I'm currently at 39.4 thousand chaos damage per second. Level 4 Empower, for me, gives me about 1,000 more DPS, so from 39 to about 40k. Really not a big deal considering Slower Proj is absolutely free and a level 4 Empower is about 6 exalts. If you have a +1 to levels chest, then Empower becomes way better. But at this stage it barely matters. Run a Slower Proj. The slower projectiles don't really matter too much, and in some cases can help you where you can stack them up before actually hitting a mob. Besides that, the gear is extremely flexible in what you can wear. I went with Winds of Change just to try and squeeze out a bit more damage from the build. 45 proj damage, as you can see, gives 39, about 2000 Chaos Tooltip, which isn't a big deal, so by all means use whatever you want there. A helm, pretty much whatever you want there, whatever you want in your belt, whatever you want on your boots. Some cast speed will go a bit of a long way on your ring if you can get it, but mostly life and resists. Life resists, life resists, cast speed, spell damage. All of this shit is pretty cheap and achievable for most of you. And also some life and spell damage on your shield. Or you can dual wield if you really want and get even more cast speed. Or you can run some Breath of the Council mace. That too works. The only other important thing is, on your helm, you want some sort of curse effect enchant, because these are ridiculously strong. 30% increased temporal chains curse effect means that when we're cursing for 39% slower, all of a sudden it's another 13% on top of that. It's huge. Or you could have the vulnerability curse effect, which will in turn give you about 10% extra damage overall, because there's 33% increased damage from damage over time. Another 30% on that means about 11% overall dot damage, and that's pretty strong. And as well as that, we are scaling curse effectiveness through this node, a bit through this node, and as well as that, blasphemy gives you a bit too, another 10%. That makes all your curses ridiculously strong. Besides that, there's not much else to say. Running blasphemy, vulnerability, temp chains, and blasphemy. Got an enlighten here. You don't really have to have that. Doesn't change too much. You'll still have plenty of mana unreserved. Bam. Enlighten just makes my mana a little bit easier. Most of the mana sustain will come from your Eternal Flask. You can live a bit more of a mana regen lifestyle from clarity and mana regen items, which I don't have any at the moment. And that is largely because I want to run slower regen and no regen maps, and mana regen does nothing for that. In the wand I have Flame Dash and Faster Casting attached with Enfeeble as well. In the helm I have Immortal Call, custom damage taken, increased duration. Your custom damage taken setup here is fairly important for things like porcupines, but ultimately not that essential. You can probably live without it, and Vile Haste is fairly nice for your single target. Here we have Contagion, Stone Golem, and Increased Area of Effect. I did have Faster Casting attached to Contagion, but for the tougher boss fights I've started to use Stone Golem too, because it does a bit of tanking and gives you some valuable life regen. You're pretty squeezed for links on this build, so it's hard to fit everything in. And in the boots I have Wither, Spell Totem, and Faster Casting. That's pretty important. That's a very large damage boost to have a Wither Totem up, constantly slowing and giving you more damage. And on top of that, Vile Lightning Trap, Shocks, gives you 50% more damage against the tougher bosses. Run whatever flask you want really. These aren't too important. You can mix and match. Get more defensive flasks, do whatever you want. I'm running Stibnite, Silver, and Quicksilver, as well as the Eternal and the Life. As far as Uber Atziri goes, the whole first run went rather smoothly. The Vials prove pretty much no challenge. You should be able to down them before they go down with this strategy of Wither Totem and Lightning Trap, but even if you don't, they're pretty slow thanks to your Enfeeble and Temp Chains, and make it rather easy. Same with Trio. All you gotta do is drop a Wither Totem, run in there, Enfeeble the bitch, and it's just a joke. They are so slow and deal such shitty damage that you can kind of stand there and face tank while stacking up poison and being pretty much immune to everything. The biggest problems for Uber Atziri are the trash, which, since you're not freezing it or anything, not shattering it, can be fairly damage heavy. If you stand back, when you're right next to it with your temp chains, then it doesn't do too much and it's fairly safe. But opening doors and, coming across big packs of the constructs and sparkers is pretty dangerous and can get you into some serious trouble. I don't think I died to trash at all, but we did have a few close calls. and be careful with it, basically. Atziri, though, herself is kind of challenging. There are a few things just to figure out and how best to do it. I died once, I think, on the very first attempt, and ever since then I did figure out how best to do it, but it's somewhat skill based unless you have way more damage or way more life, and I don't have either of those things. So you drop your Wither Totem almost always. That'll slow her down. Stay close to her for temp chains. That does cause her storm calls to be a bit random, bear in mind. And for the split phase, that's the tough part. You need to throw in your Vile Lightning Trap onto whichever one you decide to kill. I decided to kill the Spearad, and then run on top of the Spearad, drop a Stibnite, hopefully keep her temp chains, and kill her quickly while trying to dodge the Flame Blast. So that can get a bit tricky, but it's also fairly doable once you get good enough damage. They die fairly quickly, so it ends up being rather comfortable once you get the hang of it. Don't fret, it is doable, and I'm sure you guys can do it too. I was playing kind of bad all day, and it ended up being fairly trivial in the end, once you get the hang of it. So this was the entire character. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to give it a shot. If not, no dramas. See you next time.